Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Felipe. This is Second Earth Alternative. It's been a while, I understand. Things happen in life, and I just had to take a couple weeks break. And it looks like I'm going to be moving out of the area. I will be going to a very remote area. For now, it's going to be undisclosed, but when I get there, which is going to be 2 weeks, I will go ahead and post an update as to where I'm at. So if you saw me hesitate on the name Second Earth, it's because I'm kind of creating a new section. It's like Second Earth ITN in the news, and we've actually done this section before. It just, I want to do a little bit different, a little bit more fun.
It's not fun.
And the whole idea is just to go over all the crazy stories that are happening and, kind of brush them by, see if there's any credibility to the stories. Some of them can be quite
scary,
ridiculous. I don't know how else to say it. So if you've never heard, this story will certainly pique your interest, because I know that when I heard it for the first time, it certainly shocked me. Findings from new investigation to the Dyantlov Pass Incident announced. Now, this article is by Tim Bennell of Coast to Coast. Russian officials have announced an avalanche and subsequent hyperthermia were to blame for the tragic event, but not everybody is convinced of the findings. Maybe we should explain. If you've never heard of the Dyantlov Pass Incident, it's where a number of very experienced Russian hikers essentially went into a very difficult category climb, but it wasn't the fact that they perished that was so mysterious. It was the fact that every single one of them had perished in different locations with very strange circumstances, like the tents apparently had been cut out from the inside and people ran naked into the forest. Some people had bruises, some people had their eyes plucked out, other people had crushing damage to the lungs, and it seemed like everybody had a slightly different injury. So that was kind of the topping, the icing to this mystery. So reading further. That an avalanche and subsequent hyperthermia were to blame for the tragic event, but not everybody's convinced of the findings. The decision to take a fresh look at the curious case sparked headlines and excitement back in February of 2019 when it was announced in conjunction with the 60th anniversary of the Eerie 1959 episode, in which 9 hikers in the Ural Mountains died under mysterious circumstances. Now, nearly 18 months later, the result of what was promised to be rigorous studies have been released to the public. Now, while many had hoped that the new findings would examine some of the more exotic suggestions for what caused the incident, such as a Yeti attack, or weapons tests gone wrong, it was made clear very early on the process that only prosaic explanations would be explored. This was revealed at the start of the study when lead investigator Andrei Kuryakov told reporters that all fantastical theories have been dropped and that it is absolutely out of the question that the event had any connection to a clandestine government operation. Funny, because they mentioned a Yeti attack, a weapons test gone wrong, a clandestine government operation. They did away with all fantastical reports, but somehow they never even thought to mention UFO. And I'm going to get to the reason why it's important to mention UFO, because some of the strange things that happen to these hikers are things that have been seen in ufology before. Now, I'm not claiming it's aliens, but we have to consider it at the very least, I mean, it is in the mountains in a very isolated area. You don't know, there's no prosaic earthbound explanation. Well, we have stones and things that says that there have been people who've come from up there. Therefore, it was not altogether surprising when Kuryakov held a press conference this past weekend in Russia and indicated that the months-long investigation into the case had concluded that the hikers perished due to an unfortunate series of natural events. Detailing what he believed to be the group's fateful final hours, he explained that the injuries sustained by the young men and woman were akin to those suffered by rock climbers caught in an avalanche. More specifically, Kuryakov said that when the hikers realized that their camps was about to be overwhelmed by snow, They fled the area to seek a safer shelter approximately 1.5 miles away. At last, this only compounded the predicament as the ill-equipped group lost sight of their tent due to poor visibility and ultimately succumbed to hypothermia over the course of the evening as they were bladdered by a blizzard, as well as unsuccessful and sometimes injurious attempts to return to the camp. Yeah, like getting your eye poked out.
It's scary
under those perilous conditions. No doubt, trying to close the book on the Dyantlov Pass Incident once and for all, Kurikov declared that the avalanche theory has found its full confirmation via the new investigation. It was a heroic I love the word struggle. There was no panic, he mused, but they had no chance to save themselves under this There was no panic. Are you out of your mind? Okay, let's just finish the article. As one might imagine, the result of the investigation have already been called into question by longtime Dyantlov Pass researchers, as it fails to answer a number of questions surrounding the case. Additionally, the decision to only look at the natural causes from the outset has raised suspicion that the new study is really a cover-up for the clandestine weapon test theory. I guess there was a theory about a weapons test, but we're going to show in a different article that apparently that weapon that was shot that same day was shot in a different direction. Not possible. To that end, a group of independent researchers who have been looking at the case for the last 20 years expressed dismay at the findings and called for yet another official investigation into the case. Considering that the Russian government has portrayed their conclusion as rather definitive, it's doubtful that the case will be officially reopened anytime soon or ever again, despite the misgiving of critics. So let's take a look at this investigator who, mind you, looks like he looks Russian. It looks like somebody who'd be hired by Putin, right? If he talks like a Russian, then he's a Russian. Now, I don't know if I want to read all this because a lot of this is kind of like a summation of the same thing, but real quickly, in the winter of 1959, a group of 9 hikers didn't return from the mountains of the northern Ural. For 18 days, the group was supposed to ski 300 kilometers along the north of the Sverdlovsk region and climb true peaks. The expedition was one of the highest category of difficulty according to the classification of the 1950s. A month after the group went missing, rescuers found a cut tent and 5 frozen bodies within a distance of 1.5 kilometers on the slope of the nameless pass. The bodies of the rest were found only in May. The investigation found that some of them died from the cold, but some had fatal injuries of unknown origin. What exactly happened to the Dyantlov group is still a mystery to this day. No, it's not. This whole thing is that this dude figured it out without looking at the crazy explanations. So let's just get to the brunt of it. What made them come out of the tent? What made the skiers come out of the tent? Because that's, this guy looks pretty serious with this ping pong ball. But the point is that the biggest mystery of this whole thing is that these guys ran naked, very experienced hikers, mind you, ran naked out of their tent like little kids on some kind of bad mushroom trip. Cut open their tents without their gears, without their compass, without the clothes to keep them safe, without shoes. They then ran miles naked. Some of them found with injuries in their chests, some of them crushed skulls, others had their eyes plucked out. One dude literally had his tongue severed, as if it was ripped out. So, to break up the whole thing that they're saying here, because it's kind of like a long article, they're telling us that there was one of the guys who was found with clothes, because I guess some people were not found with clothes. One of the dudes who was found with clothes was apparently the watch guy. He was standing there and didn't trust didn't trust in the mountains. Essentially, they were kind of diagnosing his psychology, even though it says no exact information on Zolotaryov's thoughts at the time was documented. Okay, so there's no documentation of his thoughts, but they seem to presume to know that he had been worried about the mountains, thus kept his clothes on. Which, by the way, it would be very unusual to find hikers without their clothes anyway, so the whole idea of this guy having clothes being in an unusual circumstance, it's only based because the circumstances are already so damn unusual that you got all these people without clothes. It's like saying it's strange for if a guy ended up wearing a tie to a swinger party or something. Like, people wear ties. So apparently they're saying that they must have heard the avalanche, and then one of the watchmen must have screamed and warned at them, and then I guess in a panic the dudes must have cut from the inside of their tents thinking they're about to get crushed by the avalanche and ran naked without their equipment, though apparently one dude fled the tents with his camera but without any clothing on. I know how important a camera can be, but it's not that important, right? How is that possible? So look at these people. I mean, they look like young, tough, rugged individuals who could probably survive a whipping or a lashing in nature, you know? I mean, this isn't something that, it is very unusual that a whole bunch of 20-something-year-old individuals could just perish with different injuries, mind you. You know, this is like the NIST reports for the WTC7, you know, where they just like, yeah, you know, here is the evidence, and we're just not even going to mention the W Trade Center 7. Just let's not even mention it because it's not important. But we'll show you this cool graph, and that will give us all the information we need. In fact, this is what's so interesting about this. Check this out. Let's look at their sources here. What examinations were carried out? Examinations of photographic film and negatives. Okay, so film. Okay, microclimatic examination. So one weather dude. So we got film, one weather dude. Medical and psychological examination. How do you do a psychological examination when you explicitly say no exact information on his thoughts at the time was documented? Just wondering. So we got the doctor, we got the climatologist, and we got the photography guy. We got a situational expert, whatever that means. You know, what it's like one of those like rugged guys that you hire from the Discovery Channel. Okay, so then we got photo technical examination based. Okay, so this is basically a photo again. Geodetic examination. Okay, so graph and photography. Production of intensive 3D. Okay, so once again, 3D modeling photography. This is photography, video and geo understanding. Okay, you're understanding the graphs. Situational expert. Okay, you hired in the next Steve Irwin, whatever. Forensic medical examination. You hire one doctor, a psychologist that apparently can't do psychological analysis, and then you've concluded there's no unnatural explanation to this. Okay, let me just show you very quickly what actually happened that night. Dyantlov Pass Incident explained. Here are the facts you need to know. Healthy looking young tear of the tent from the inside. So as we mentioned earlier, Zolotaryov fled the tent with his camera but without his clothes. That's very weird. His body was discovered in a very disturbing manner in the sense that his corpse was lying faced up, jacket unbuttoned. His face was covered with abrasions while his hands were clenched tightly to his chest. Routinely, Sullivan was soon found with severely fractured skull. Zenaida, on the other hand, had injuries on her face, but her hands took most of the assault as frostbite and abrasions ravaged both hands and phalanges. So this might be the closest one to an avalanche theory, which is where Nikolai, I'm not even going to say his last name, his body was discovered in snow. In looking at the body, no external injuries could be observed. However, he suffered gruesome internal injuries, including fractured skull and jaw. So that seems a little bit more like it, but then check this out. The next bodies of Simeon and Alexander, well, their soft tissues near the ocular area were missing. So Why is it that one guy gets crushed by snow, but then another guy gets his eyes missing? His chest was severely compressed that it actually shattered his ribs. There was also a wide wound on his skull. Alexander was also missing soft tissues near his eyes. He has a deep wound on his skull close to his ear. The most brutal of injuries would be discovered on the corpses of the final victim, Lyudmila Dubnina. Her nose was crushed completely, her eyes were missing, her tongue was ripped off her body, while her mouth was open in such a manner that seemed like she was screaming. So, and mind you, it says here in the bottom that, you know, in the burial, a lot of the relatives were saying that their bodies were lying in a state that had a weird orange glow, and that their hair had turned gray. Now, I don't know if avalanches do this, nor do I know how avalanches specifically pick out certain individuals to crush with the snow, crush the skull and the chest and everything, but then leave just enough room for the faces to be ravaged, for the tongues to be ripped, or whatever. I guess the theory would be that it's scavengers that are doing this. Have they found the paw tracks? Just saying. So, obviously with this episode, we're not going to solve this mystery, but I did want to showcase to you what they're saying, that there is a NIST type report from the Russian government with a Putin-looking individual telling you with a ping pong ball, a whole bunch of photoforensic individuals, that yes, there is no unnatural explanation to consider here. Now, the next image I'm about to show you is slightly graphic. Check this out. I've heard about this. This was apparently happened in Brazil. This is what's called a human mutilation. Now, I'm gonna probably have to blur it out for the sake of YouTube, but just to show you what's happening here, there are eyes being plucked out, missing tongue, and injuries, strange holes and injuries throughout the body. Strange orange type glow to the body. Can't say what happened to the hair, but certainly I don't know what happened in this human mutilation, but it certainly seems close to what we're seeing with the Dyantlov Pass Incident. Am I right? Probably not. I'm just showing you an option. This is just, I don't think that this option is a very good one either, because no true mystery can be solved if you don't consider the mysterious possibilities. I hope you guys like this new section where I kind of just go off some news, and you know, this will give me a lot more material, you know, things to do, things to give you guys. And frankly, I enjoyed this. I kind of like taking a more of a laid-back approach and just kind of breaking down the crazy news as we see it. And we may not always be right. This is an opinion show, but you know, we come here for entertainment as well as information. Anyways, this is Felipe speaking. Signing out.